So I want to begin with the state regulations and the phasing that the state is going through. Currently, I believe we're getting ready to change again this coming end of this week. Can you update those that may not live in this state on where we are in relation to Virginia?
Absolutely. So we entered phase one a couple weeks back now, and we've been watching phase one, which didn't have any real big significant changes. Still limited people to 10, still 6 feet of social distancing. Did release some outside seating for restaurants, outside at 50% capacity, no inside seating, and released some distancing practices for churches and some other things, but not a huge difference when it came to university, higher education type stuff. And then tomorrow we are going to enter phase two, which we will then see that higher education has been kind of given some additional opportunities where we can return to some business, we can return to small classroom activities, we can return to some small lab activities, and it transitions the Commonwealth of Virginia from a maximum of 10 people in a space up to 50. So what you will see moving forward for the University of Lynchburg is we have 3 programs that will be modeling a phased reopening. That's PA medicine, nursing, and athletic training. So we are, we'll be following Commonwealth of Virginia's reopening phased guidelines, but we are planning as of probably next week, maybe the week after. We're not jumping on it the day the state says we can, but we are going to slowly kind of get there.
Virginia, we're phasing and doing all this stuff, but we're still obviously getting cases, and there have been some deaths, lower numbers for sure. But your overall assessment of how we did to this point and where it could go. I mean, people would feel like there's a notion of now we can start to relax a little bit, but in the back of our minds, we have to remember that it's not gone.
Sure. And as the medical provider and scientist, I will tell you that I think this will be studied for a very long time to see, did we do this correctly? And there'll probably be often different opinions on, did social distancing work? And that's why our numbers were never high. Or was social distancing never needed because our numbers never would have been high? And I think there's definitely some opinions on both sides of that line. What I'm telling my students and the other groups that I'm working with and talking with, social distancing worked. We've done a good job. We unfortunately did all sacrifice. We've sacrificed in spending time with each other. We sacrificed in how we engage with faculty, staff, and students, how we engage with our loved ones. I will add that I got married last weekend, and it went from a wedding of 260 people down to 10. So we have all had some areas that we just did not see it coming. So it's definitely different. But social distancing has worked. We've had very low numbers here, in my opinion, based on the total population of Virginia and the size of Lynchburg City and surrounding areas. We've done well, and our numbers have been low. That's a good thing. I think what's important is that we stay diligent with it. It's hard to be diligent and fight something you don't see and that doesn't ever seem to come to fruition. That people start to have some doubt on how much are we making an impact and how much sacrifice is worth what we're doing. And what I would say is we're so close. We're doing well. Stick with the facial coverings, stick with social distancing, really continue to be diligent about washing hands and using hand sanitizer. And I think we'll continue to see this get better. There are some models from UVA and some other places saying that the fall could be tricky. We could see those numbers go in the direction we don't want to see them go, and we could start to see the phasing reverse back out of phase. I mean, we're heading towards phase 2. I feel confident we'll eventually hit phase 3, but if the numbers start to go up, will we see that go back? And I do think that we'll see those phases kind of be slowly pulled back. So my statement to everyone is, keep doing what you're doing with the facial coverings and social distancing and keeping our hands clean and not touching our face. It's working, so we got to ride it out till the end. And I think if we do that, we'll be back to some semblance of normal very soon.
On that same line, I'm curious to know your thoughts on the argument or the opinion of herd immunization, and the fact that, you know, we have the flu and cold season, and that stuff's going to happen, and so is COVID-19. I mean, that's going to be part of our lives, you know, for the foreseeable future. What when you hear that, can you provide a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more on what that might mean, and is that something that, you know, allows us to relax too much because we think, well, we're just gonna have to deal with it, so go out there and get dirty and become immune to it?
Yeah, I mean, prior to COVID, if someone said herd immunity, it made sense. I mean, we're exposed to the virus. We all have a little cold for a little while. We have the flu, and we go back. But what I'll say is the data is still out. We have not seen that there's a true immunity based with COVID as we've seen with other viral illnesses. So I think we continue to study that. We continue to watch that. What I would say is we don't want to jump into a herd immunity concept too quickly. I mean, in theory, by phasing back in, there is some level of herd immunity that will just take place. So let's follow the guidance and let's slowly introduce, and we then can watch it. The concern is if you jump in too quickly, is the numbers spike so high so quickly that our healthcare system is not able to compensate quick enough. And I think that is really where a lot of the anxiety came for me and my team that are, you know, not only academics, but all are practicing in some different areas of medicine, and our preceptors, who are all people that support our students, and Centra and all the other surrounding healthcare organizations that support us, is, you know, if it had got bad in this area, we would have kind of outstripped our bed capacity and our resource capacity. And there were days that we were seeing announcements from multiple different institutions around the area that are saying we are within 48 hours of running out of PPE, protective, you know, personal protective equipment. That's not a good place to be. And, you know, the transition has been hard because a face mask, you know, when I trained and practiced in emergency medicine, a face mask was a one and done. I never put a face mask back on. I'd wear a face mask. I wouldn't touch the front of it. I would grab the ear strap or untie it, and it would go right in the trash. And that was the end of it. It was a single use item. And we have reinvented, you know, this equipment, and, you know, the brown paper bag and alternating masks and, you know, UV light, and trying to, you know, use multiple different products to decontaminate and reduce risk with protective equipment. I mean, that's very different. That's a very different world for us that are in healthcare. So we don't want to go back to that. And we're seeing that ease. We're seeing PPE be controlled. We have good supply chain at this point. So I think we're doing well. And herd immunity, again, will eventually take place anyways. We just don't want to rush it to the point that we overdo our healthcare providers, because it really is a hard one to overcome. My life before Central Virginia was in New York, and I've stayed in contact with a lot of my friends in New York, and they have really had a bad run at it. Really bad. I mean, a lot of them have become ill, have been quarantined from their family for weeks on end, have had several of my friends were in emergency medicine doing 12 to 16-hour days for 20 to 30 days in a row. There was just no one else to cover the shifts. There's no one else to cover the emergency department. And that's not an environment we want to try to reproduce here in Central Virginia. So let's give it time. Let's move slowly. If we see things not going the way we want, we have time to assess and then correct. And I think we'll do a good job keeping Central Virginia healthy.